All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our webinar today. We are so excited to be partnering with Ecolab, one of our fantastic vendor partners, and they're going to be presenting critical information on the safety procedures for cleaning and disinfecting during COVID-19 and beyond. We are so excited for them to present all of this relevant information to you, and I'm sure you're going to have tons of questions at the end. So we do ask that you mute yourselves throughout this presentation and ask any questions that you may have in the chat box throughout the presentation. And then if you have any questions in the 15-minute Q&A portion, you can unmute yourselves and ask that, but we will be doing our best to monitor the chat box and answering any questions you have during that Q&A. I did also want to reiterate to you that Helen Marks is here for you, and we will continue to be a support for you and a consultant throughout this time. And we are excited to provide you with this helpful information. We are recording this webinar, and I know we did have a few deals and discounts if you signed on to this webinar. So we will be making sure that you guys get those as well. So with that being said, I am very excited for Ecolab to present this information, and just please mute yourselves throughout, and then at the Q&A in the 10 minutes at the end of the presentation, feel free to ask as many questions as you have. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us today. Welcome to Ecolab's webinar on cleaning and disinfecting during COVID-19 and beyond. So kind of wherever you are with your business, what we're here today to discuss is all those tips and techniques to help ensure that your employees, your customers, and any guests return to clean and healthy environments. So let's jump in. All right, so Ecolab has been in the business of cleaning for 97 years as a trusted partner in hygiene and infection prevention. So our focus is really on delivering outcomes. Now, whether that's enhancing a customer's experience through clean surfaces or well-maintained floors, or creating healthy environments kind of by personalizing those disinfection programs, or even optimizing operations so that you can best utilize what's your greatest resource, which is your people. We do this by pairing our field support and expertise with our partners out in the market, and with innovative cleaning programs and flexible training options, so that you've got all the resources you need to succeed. So let me introduce our speakers today. Myself first. So my name is Amanda Bakken. I'm a lead chemist and a disinfection expert for Ecolab, and I've been with this company for 12 years. I specialize in surface hygiene products, so this includes disinfectants, and I'm a member of Ecolab's Public Health and Food Safety Leadership Team. Now with me today is Casey Struhler. Casey is a disinfectant procedure and training specialist for Ecolab, and she provides technical expertise to some of our largest global customers and consulting on matters that are specifically related to COVID-19. She's been at Ecolab for 5 years and has held a variety of roles, including in regulatory and research and development. Now, it can be a bit challenging, a bit tough to talk about reopening businesses or how businesses have to do more with less, especially as we're seeing COVID-19 cases continue to rise and many states starting to move back to restrictions on businesses. So while we can't control the pandemic or any of those restrictions, it is critical to remember that cleaners and janitorial staff are really on the front lines of this thing too, doing everything that they can to make sure that it is safe for people that have to go to work or to the doctor or to the grocery store, for example. And so our goal is really to make sure that they're equipped with the right tools and procedures to make them as effective and as efficient as possible. Because the world has changed and how we handle hygiene has changed as well. So there's an increased demand for disinfection. People want to know that the places that they are going are not only clean, but safe. So this means that cleaning practices are shifting for not being just about cleaning for appearance, but cleaning for public health. And so this is changing the focus from your typical vacuuming and wiping to more specialized protocols that include disinfection. So once you implement these protocols, you have to make them visible. You have to be able to communicate to people the steps that you're taking and the standards that you're working towards to protect them. And this piece is more important than ever because it really signals to your staff the importance of what they are doing and the impact that they are making, as well as building that confidence in the people that come in and use the space. Now, employee training and the cost of labor is something I think I would call kind of a perpetual challenge made new again. With this year's economy, many businesses are dealing with big swings in their workforce, right? Whether you've had to bring in new employees or you've got a seasoned crew on hand, these changes are putting new demands on your team that may require additional training on disinfection, on new areas or touch points they may need to focus on, and cleaning at different frequencies or possibly at different times of the day. You might also be facing increased wages to attract and retain talent. And kind of when all of this comes together, it's just really critical to be able to train employees quickly and efficiently. There are more demands on your operation this year and likely not a lot of give in the budget. So today we're going to cover ways to build a high performing, high efficiency operation and some of the different products, procedures, and resources that can be leveraged to get there. So we're going to start by covering the basics of chemistry selection with an emphasis placed on choosing the right disinfectant for your needs. We'll go through some various methods of application, including electrostatic spraying and some tips to be successful with it. Casey will then cover the importance of procedures and how they might vary depending on what it is you're cleaning. So the way I like to think of procedures is this, right? I could have the best hammer in the world, but if I use it to try to cut down a tree, I'm going to struggle. And so the same goes with cleaning. The best chemistry in the world is only as good as those procedures that you use it with. And lastly, Casey's going to talk about some ways to demonstrate all of the great work that your staff are doing to clean and protect your spaces and how you can really build that confidence and safety with your customers and guests. Now to the chemistry. So I am a bit of a chemistry geek, so this section is a bit fun for me. My hope is that you're going to come away from this with some tips for how to choose kind of the right tool for the right job at hand. So there are many different tools out there today that can be used to achieve clean surfaces. But it's really important to understand the differences between those tools so that the right one can be selected for whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So I thought I'd start by getting us all on the same page regarding the different options available. The first category is cleaners. So these are going to be the products designed to remove soil from a surface, but they don't necessarily kill any bacteria or viruses. These are going to be great for those tough soil removal applications. So think about like a pot and pan detergent or a degreaser, things like that. A sanitizer is something that is able to reduce the number of bacteria on a surface, but it doesn't fully eliminate them. Sanitizers are also unable to target viruses, so they are limited in their antimicrobial performance. They are most typically used on food contact surfaces because they're required by the food code. Now, disinfectants are products that are able to eliminate both bacteria and viruses. They typically get used in areas where there's going to be a risk of spreading disease or illness, such as restrooms or any of those high touch surfaces. Now, both sanitizers and disinfectants are regulated by the United States EPA. So, what that means is any claims these products make have to be reviewed and approved for use by the EPA. Approved claims for all of these products are publicly available on EPA's website and on the commercial product label. Now, one thing to note is in times of really quick change, like a pandemic, new claims that get added to products, so new kill claims, for example, they may not show up right away on the commercial label on the package. There's usually a lead time in turning inventory over. However, it is important to note the label on the EPA's website can always be accessed for the most up-to-date claims and directions for use. One other really important piece to remember here is the label is the law on these types of products. The US EPA actually issues federal regulations that require these products be used according to the label directions. So off-label use, if you use it in a way that isn't described on the product label, is actually against the law. And as always, remember that these types of products are not for use on or in humans or animals. They should really only be used on inanimate objects and surfaces. All right, now, when it comes to killing pathogens or those kind of things that make people sick, we've talked about sanitizers and disinfectants. So, how do you know which product to choose? Well, the most important question to ask yourself is what are you trying to clean? So, for food contact surfaces, a food contact sanitizer is going to be your best bet. This is going to cover those eating and food prep areas as well as 3 compartment sinks and meets food code requirements for sanitation in those areas. This type of product gets used typically in a 2 or 3 step cleaning procedure. So you're either going to clean, rinse, and then sanitize that surface, or clean and sanitize, depending on what product you're using. And then you would let those surfaces stay wet for 1 minute to make sure you're achieving that full kill performance. For any non-food contact surfaces, a hard surface disinfectant is what's going to be recommended. So this provides a disinfection level of kill performance against the broadest range of germs, including those found in restrooms and healthcare settings. So a disinfectant should also be your go-to tool for any pandemic cleaning procedures because of its ability to target viruses. These products are either going to be used in a one-step procedure or a two-step clean and then disinfect process. Again, that surface does need to stay wet for whatever contact time is listed on the label. Now, this can vary from product to product, so it is very important to check the solution that you're using to ensure you're using it in the right way to get that full kill performance that you're expecting. Now, not just any disinfectant is approved for use against the pandemic virus. So if you're looking for pandemic specific cleaning, this is going to be important to pay attention to. The EPA created what they call List N. Now, this is a comprehensive list of all the product registrations that are approved for use against SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that causes COVID-19. So prior to choosing a disinfectant for your pandemic cleaning procedures, make sure it's approved on that list. And the easiest way to do this is to search EPA List N online and just go to the EPA's tool. It's going to ask you first for the EPA registration number, and this is going to be found printed on the label of the product, so you can see it here. If you don't have access to the label, you can often find it on a product SDS or even the company's website. Now, EPA registration numbers are split into several parts. So you've got the company number, which is that first section, and the product number. It's these two parts that you're going to enter into the EPA's tool. Every now and again, a product will also have a third part to that number, but you're going to leave that piece out when you're searching in the tool. And so once you hit enter, that tool is going to populate a table with information about that product registration. So important things to know about this table. The product's name that's listed may not match the product that you have, and that's okay. As long as the EPA registration number matches the first two parts of your product's number, you're good to go. Products will get added to this list through a number of different ways. They can either have a direct kill claim against SARS-CoV-2. They can have claims against other viruses that would indicate performance against the pandemic virus, such as things like human coronavirus or norovirus. There's a handful of others. But whatever virus allowed that product to be approved is going to be listed in that fifth column. And that's the virus you should follow for use directions, such as contact time. So as an example here, peroxide multi-surface cleaner and disinfectant has a direct kill claim against SARS-CoV-2 with a 30-second contact time. You're still going to need to look at the product label to get to that appropriate dilution and application instructions, but you're able to get a high level of information from EPA's List N. Now, if a registration number does not show up in this table, then that product is not approved for use in pandemic cleaning procedures. All right, so now that you've confirmed your disinfectant is approved for use for COVID applications, what else should you look for? Well, I mentioned earlier that disinfectants can be either one or two-step products. So I recommend looking for a one-step product in order to drive time and labor savings in your operations. These are going to be products that don't require surfaces to be pre-cleaned prior to disinfection, and you can identify them because they're either going to have claims of saying they're one step or they'll say cleaner and disinfectant in the product name. You should also look for a disinfectant with broad efficacy. So that means it has many claims against many varieties of bacteria and viruses. So, I mean, even though we are up to our necks right now with everything COVID related, the other germs haven't gone away. In fact, we are in the midst of flu season right now, right? And restrooms, gyms, these are all places where all kinds of pathogens really like to live. And the pandemic virus is fairly easy to kill, but other pathogens such as MRSA or norovirus are actually much more challenging. So make sure that the disinfectant you choose can be that single solution to cover all of these needed applications. And what about green cleaning? With the expanded use of disinfectants, how can businesses continue to pursue sustainability or environmental stewardship goals? Well, the EPA doesn't allow third parties such as Green Seal or the USDA bio-based program to make certifications on EPA registered products. And Safer Choice, which is EPA's own eco certification program, They only have ready-to-use solutions approved, which can get to be very expensive and very heavy on packaging waste. So instead of relying on a third-party certification, I would recommend taking the power into your own hands to drive your business's sustainability goals. You can identify those outcomes that are most critical to you. I'm going to talk through some of those options here. So to target some goals around human health and sustainability, look for disinfectants that have features along the top row here. So things like being PPE free to simplify training and ensure safe use. You can check and make sure it has packaging designed to reduce worker exposure to concentrated solutions. If the product is fragrance free or compliant with IFR guidance, which is kind of a global standard for fragrance safety. And you can check to see if if the chemistry was formulated to be low in VOCs and in compliance with the regulations for minimizing hazards in the air. To further any goals you have around environmental responsibility, you can look for features along the bottom row. So products with ingredients that are biodegradable, which means that the surfactants they use in them are not going to persist in the environment after they get used. Products that are non-toxic to aquatic life and have a low impact on aquatic environments. Products that contain no or very low levels of phosphorus to limit any nutrient pollution in the water. And again, products that are concentrates. So these are going to both reduce packaging waste and emissions due to the manufacturing and transportation needs that you get with concentrates. Okay, so now that you have your chemistry selected, how do you go about applying it? This next section is going to cover some of those application methods and how to make sure you're choosing the best one for the job. All right, so let's start with spraying and the three main tools that we use here. Trigger sprayers are definitely the most traditional way of applying a product, and they work well to direct product to a surface. So this type of application, I'd say, is really best suited for those small to mid-size areas. So think about, smaller restrooms or entryways, or really in places where you need a very directed spray. They tend to be very cost effective with a low upfront investment needed. But they also tend to require the most physical work just because of that manual trigger application. And especially for disinfection, you might need to spread the product around with a cloth or something afterwards to just ensure you get kind of that even coverage after applying it. Pressurized sprayers are a bit better suited for some larger areas, and they provide a more continuous style of spray. They often require a manual effort to pressurize the tank as well, but would be well suited for some of those large non-food contact areas, such as things like loading docks. One application method that is growing in popularity right now is applying product through an electrostatic sprayer. Now, electrostatic sprayers, they tend to be powered units, so they may be battery powered or plug in, and they're going to apply a charge to the droplets as they leave your sprayer. This charge causes the droplets to behave kind of like tiny magnets, and it really ensures that they are more readily attracted to the surfaces that are being sprayed. These units will typically require higher upfront investment in the equipment, but they can provide some really decent time and labor savings in your disinfection procedures when you compare them to using a spray bottle. It is important to note this application is regulated by the EPA and it does require separate testing to ensure that the chemistry can still disinfect when it gets applied through an electrostatic sprayer. So you're going to be able to know if a product was approved by finding those specific use directions for electrostatic spraying either on the product label or on the EPA's website, and there's going to be a defined procedure to follow. The EPA also requires some pretty specific PPE to be used for all chemistries that are used through an electrostatic sprayer. So just be prepared to use either an N95 mask or something like a half face respirator in addition to the normal PPE called out on the SDS. This is an EPA requirement and very specific to this application. So the same chemistry used through a trigger sprayer would not necessarily require that additional respiratory protection. Now, there are some great benefits to electrostatic spraying. So I mentioned droplets being attracted to the surface that kind of better allow you to get that product where you want it to go. But also because those droplets are given the same charge, they will repel each other in the air and actually spread out very evenly across the surface, providing a very uniform and comprehensive coverage. It provides a continuous spray functionality, so that really allows users to move very quickly through a space while being able to cover those surfaces and can deliver disinfection across a very large area using less time and less chemistry than you'd expect to see from a trigger sprayer. It is best suited for those non-food contact areas and high touch point surfaces where the risk of transmission of germs and pathogens and stuff would be the highest. It's also important to note that electrostatic spraying does not replace the need for kind of that periodic manual cleaning. So these are devices that do not remove soil or debris, body fluids, anything like that. They really just help distribute products more evenly across surfaces and across those difficult to reach areas. So making sure you've got that manual cleaning step kind of planned periodically into your procedures is going to be really critical to make sure you take care of those soils. Now, if you are looking to implement electrostatic spraying in your operation, I'd first start by identifying those areas where it makes the most sense. So look for those places where you have large areas of hard surfaces or high touch points and areas that are non-food contact. So some examples might be a lobby or reception area, offices, conference rooms, fitness areas or gyms, employee break rooms. And then the touch points to focus on are going to be those things like doorknobs, hand railings, elevators, chairs and armrests, desks or countertops. This is certainly not a comprehensive list, so make sure you take a look around your facility for those surfaces that people are going to be touching the most and make those a priority. It's also important to consider material compatibility prior to spraying and whether you've got any sensitive surfaces in your facility like natural stone or soft metals like brass, as those could be negatively impacted by some cleaning products. And make sure to consider the area that kind of surrounds the surface you want to spray as well, because there could be a potential for overspray that could impact those surfaces. Now, once you've selected your areas, just plan out the right timing to implement your electrostatic spraying. So these are going to be areas that have to be shut down with no people present during the procedure. So just try to select a time where there's low foot traffic or, maybe at the beginning or the end of the day. I also recommend cleaning your floors as a final step in the process just to make sure any overspray gets mopped up before anyone re-enters the area. All right, so moving on to some other application methods. The bucket is a popular one and gets frequently used in food service areas to apply food contact sanitizer to surfaces. So this type of bucket can be used with disinfectants for kind of a cloth style application, but it's important to make sure the disinfectant that you're using is approved for this type of application with a cloth. And this can be found in those directions for use on the product label. You also want to make sure that solution in the bucket gets changed out fairly frequently, whether it's a sanitizer or a disinfectant, because every time you put that cloth kind of back into the bucket, you're introducing more and more soil to the product, which is eventually going to make it dirty enough that it can't kill the germs on the surfaces you're cleaning. So we recommend kind of every 2 to 4 hours or more frequently if you see that solution becoming visibly dirty. Kind of a different twist on the bucket application is a disposable wipe system. So with this, you have a roll of dry wipes that you kind of put into a typical wipes canister. You'd pour your sanitizer or disinfectant on top to saturate them. And this gives you that convenience of having kind of those wet wipes or those disposable wipes around, but allows you to use them with your existing chemistry. It also eliminates the risk of those soils being reintroduced back into the container, since when each wipe gets pulled out, it gets used and then discarded. The canisters themselves are designed to be reusable to limit some of that plastic waste, but it is very important to thoroughly clean and dry them out prior to putting a new dry roll into the canister. And the last one I'm going to cover here is that mop and bucket application. So this gets really useful for times or areas where floor disinfection is desired. Now, I don't typically recommend floor disinfection be used across an entire facility just because the risk of germs being transferred off of a floor is fairly low, but there are some areas where it can make sense to do so, and that includes restrooms in particular. So this is a really efficient way to spread a disinfectant across the floor, but definitely has the same watch outs as the cloth and bucket method. So every time you put that mop back into the bucket, you're going to be adding dirt back in, just making it harder for that disinfectant to do its job. So making sure you empty and replace that solution frequently is going to be important. Now, some mop buckets do come with a removable waste bucket that helps separate out that dirty solution from the clean stuff. That helps just make it last a bit longer until it needs to be changed out. So from here, I'm going to turn it over to Casey to talk through the importance of procedures.
Thanks, Amanda. Greetings, everyone. Thanks for that great overview, Amanda, on selecting that right chemistry, that right application method. We know those two things are critically important to actually getting the result that you're looking for. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into proper cleaning procedures. These are one of the most critical things to ensure that your team can actually have ongoing success. All right, so as Amanda mentioned, Ecolab has been around for nearly a century, so we have a little bit of experience in this area. And we've always recommended best practices for cleaning and operation, but during this pandemic time, one thing we've noticed is that there really needs to be this kind of behavior shift at the unit level to ensure that employees understand and also explicitly follow proper environmental hygiene procedures. So they may have had their standard way that they cleaned and disinfected, and it worked well pre-pandemic, but now we really need to kind of go through these procedures with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that we're very, very clear on what's required and how to actually get to that disinfection level. So this slide highlights the 5 factors of clean. The 5 factors are time, temperature, chemical action, mechanical action, and then you see that one around the outside, overall procedures. And they're all really, really important to getting to clean, which is your goal. But I would argue that the single most important is that overall procedures. So Amanda, discussed picking the right solution for the job, the right tool, application method. But like she said, you can have the best tool on the market, but if it's not being used properly, it can't actually do its job. So I love the visual of the hammer used to cut down a tree. Hammer is a really important tool. It has a lot of utility if you're trying to hang a photo or build a deck, but it doesn't help you if you're trying to cut down a tree. So let's keep that in the back of our mind moving forward. So we're going to talk through the procedure for disinfecting hard, non-porous surfaces. And procedures become immensely important here when we think about things like the wet contact time required to actually achieve disinfection. So as you guys likely already know, and as Amanda explained to us a little bit earlier, disinfection is the name of the game when we think about SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, and really any viruses. They have a higher level of efficacy, a higher level of performance, a higher bar really required by the EPA in order to be considered a disinfectant. So listed here are the high-level steps to disinfecting hard, non-porous surfaces, but really ensure that you're, paying attention to those label directions and you're following them because as Amanda mentioned, the label is the law. So Ecolab disinfectants are all one-step disinfectants, and this means that they work in the presence of some soil. So they've been tested in the presence of some dirt on a surface, some soil, and they can still perform up to disinfection levels. But this isn't true for all disinfectants on the market. So make sure that you double check the label before you're applying or using any chemistry to ensure that you understand whether you need to pre-clean a surface before you disinfect. So then you can apply the disinfectant according to the label directions. This could be through those great spraying applications that Amanda outlined for us, using a spray bottle, an electrostatic sprayer even, or through immersion. And immersion would be that mop or cloth or wipe application method. So something where you're actually dunking something in the chemistry and applying it in that way. But the most critical thing to remember about disinfection is that you have to wait. So you apply the chemistry and then you wait. And this is the hardest part. We know that labor is, probably the biggest challenge right now. And so time is important, but this is time well spent. If we can leave a surface wet for the proper contact time, we can actually achieve that disinfection. And this is really important when you think about picking chemistry for the job. There are different disinfectants on the market that have a wide range of contact time. This is sometimes also referred to as the kill time or the dwell time. And they range from 15 seconds to 10 plus minutes. And so that's a pretty big range if you're really thinking about the number of dollars you spend per minute that someone's cleaning. The less time you can spend waiting to get to disinfection, the better. So after the surface has remained wet, you can either allow that surface to air dry or you can actually wipe that surface. And one thing I'll call out here is disinfectants work really, really well. Like I said, if there's even some soil, they can work well. But over time, if you're not wiping those surfaces, you're going to start to see a buildup of dust mixed with chemistry, mixed with anything else that's kind of settling out of the air. So to actually clean, you need that mechanical action of wiping the surface. All right, let's talk a little bit about soft or porous surfaces. So hard, non-porous surfaces are fairly straightforward. We formulate products specifically to disinfect those surfaces, but soft or porous surfaces are kind of a different beast. So these surfaces, should just be treated the same way that you've been treating them all along. If there's visible contamination on that surface, if someone gets ill, if there's food soils, make sure you're removing that contamination from the surface, and then you can either use soap and water or a product that's specifically formulated for this use, whether it's an upholstery cleaner, carpet cleaner, something like that. For anything that can be laundered, so we're thinking, if there's linens on the tables, even drapes periodically, you can take those items and launder them, and that would be the best practice. And the process of laundering a soft and porous surface actually gets you to something called hygienically clean. And so anything that you can launder, that would be the best practice overall. And then finally, for any carpets or rugs, vacuuming is the best practice. You could use a vacuum that has a HEPA filter as an additional layer of protection. And, maybe do that vacuuming during a time when there's not a lot of people milling about, just to avoid anyone inhaling any kind of particulates unnecessarily. All right, so now we understand what it means to disinfect, the proper procedures. And the next question that we always get is, great, I get how to do that, but how often should I be doing this? We know that as this pandemic continues to linger on, this is something that we're going to need to keep thinking about and keep revisiting. So frequency of cleaning and disinfection is not really like something we can prescribe. It's not like we can say, customer A, you should be doing this 1 time an hour. Customer B, you should be doing this 1 time every 4 hours. Because it's a risk-based decision. So this means that it's based on the environmental factors in your area. And the main environmental factors that you need to consider when you decide the frequency of cleaning and disinfection is that infection risk, the anticipated foot traffic, and also the soil load on premise. So as each of these increases, as the infection risk goes up, as you have more people walking through your operation, which equals more soil load, we would recommend increasing that frequency of cleaning and disinfection. So let's think back to March of last year, March of 2020, beginning of the pandemic. There were definite hotspots in the US in particular. We know New York City was one of those hotspots. So if someone had come to me from, a customer came to me from New York City, and one came to me from rural Minnesota, for example, and asked, hey, can you help me decide what my frequency of cleaning and disinfection should be? They would be very, very different. I would recommend very different things in terms of frequency, because that hotspot in New York City definitely has higher infection risk and likely also has higher foot traffic and more soil load. So they would be cleaning at a much more frequent clip than someone in rural Minnesota where there maybe wasn't a hotspot at that time. But fast forward many months, and I would say across the board here, we should all be cleaning and disinfecting more often until this risk of COVID really begins to subside. All right, so now we put all that extra effort into this environmental hygiene piece. We know the right procedures, we know the right tools, we know the right products, but how do we really ensure that those that are using the facility, whether it's a school, whether it's an office building, how do we, kind of reassure them and make sure that they feel comfortable coming back? So we're going to talk through some of the best practices there. So we know it's important to implement this increased environmental hygiene. That really helps ensure that your employees, customers, vendors, visitors leave your operation just as healthy as they came. But it's also likely an expectation from these same people that this increased hygiene is visible. So I don't know about you, but when I go anywhere, the grocery store, to pick up a prescription, anywhere at all, my expectation is that I'm going to see someone cleaning and disinfecting that, between guests, when you go to a reception desk or a counter, that they're wiping that surface down. That's just an expectation due to the pandemic. So, things that used to be done at night, that cleaning crew that used to come and kind of, they were meant to be, hidden. They were not meant to be really visible to the end user. They did their magic, and in the morning, people came back and everything was clean and disinfected. Now we're kind of flipping that on its head. So now we want those people out, visible, present, especially during those times of high traffic. So if you have, a big influx of people coming in the morning, whether it's students, whether it's office workers, having someone out in the lobby, visible, wiping down surfaces is a great way to reassure them that you're really taking this serious, and you're making a concerted effort to make sure that they leave just as healthy as they came. So in addition to making hygiene visible, there are many other ways to reassure your employees, your customers, your vendors, your visitors, students, office workers. These are just a smattering of examples, but some of the best ways that we've learned are, preparing a message for your employees to share with customers upon arrival. So having a consistent message, your front desk person knows, your security person knows, any workers on site, whether it's teachers, staff, they all have kind of a similar message about all of the efforts that are being put in. And this just helps people feel like, yeah, everyone's been made aware. They've all been trained on this. They know the right things to do. And so anyone can kind of, share that message with any visitors to your operation. A lot of operations have added this signage and queuing. So you might notice when you wait to check out in line at the grocery store, there might be big X's on the floor where you're supposed to stand. You're standing that 6-foot physical distance away from the person that's checking out in front of you. These are all great kind of, ways across your operation that you can really reiterate. We're paying attention to this. We're taking a really close look at all the things we can do to keep you safe when you visit our operation. And then finally, you could consider giving anyone that visits your operation the opportunity to provide feedback. So if they didn't feel like something was up to the standard that they expected, they can provide that feedback. And then the next time they come, it will likely be different. And again, this really just reinforces your commitment to their well-being and makes them feel like, yeah, I want to go visit this place again. If I'm only visiting, a handful of places during the pandemic, this place really made me feel like I was going to be healthy when I left. And so, I'll be just fine going and visiting that place. All right. That's really all the formal content that we have for today. I know it's a lot to absorb. Some of it may be review, but all good reminders about the proper selection of chemistry and tool and how to use that, and then really how to kind of merchandise all the extra efforts that you're doing on site. So we really thank you for your time, your attention, and I'm sure there's many thoughtful questions in the chat, so we'll get to those in just a minute. But before we move on to the final Q&A portion, we had a couple of extra slides to share with you. This slide is really focused on the COVID-19 response and recovery resources that are available to all of you. You can go to ecolab.com/coronavirus and click on your specific market, and we have many pieces of material that have been created and collateral that you can use on site in your operation or use as a reference tool for you and your teams. And they're really meant to help you, prepare those environments, enable your staff, and assure those customers. And then we wanted to highlight two specific products. So the first is this peroxide multi-surface cleaner and disinfectant. And this is a 3-in-1 product. It's a hard surface cleaner, it's a glass cleaner, and it's also a disinfectant. And it's formulated specifically to reduce the total number of products needed to clean and disinfect an operation. So we're thinking about, how do we reduce the number of items you might need on a cart? How do we make it really, really clear and compliance much more likely? You have a one-stop shop. This is the product that will do all the things you need it to do to clean and disinfect across your operation. It has been tested directly against SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, and it can kill this virus in only 30 seconds. It should be applied via spraying. So this includes through an electrostatic sprayer, and I've added the electrostatic sprayers here that are available for sale through Ecolab. There's both a handheld unit and a backpack unit if your operation is really large. So this product is stocked through Hill & Marks, and it's orderable now. And I think there's even a promotion for anyone who hasn't ordered product in the last 6 months. So, do utilize that promotion if it's available to you. And then also the handheld and backpack sprayers, like I said, are orderable through Ecolab, and they're available now. And then our newest offering, Sink and Surface Cleaner Sanitizer. And this product is available as both an RTU and a concentrate. It's a no rinse product, 2-in-1 cleaner and sanitizer, and it's meant for food contact surfaces specifically. So this product was formulated to be food safe at the dilution listed on the product label. And at those food safe levels, it can kill norovirus, it can kill the common cold, it can kill flu. And also it can kill SARS-CoV-2 at a food safe level. So this is really, really important when we think about those food contact areas where we don't want to be using a disinfectant because that would require a rinse step. We can use this product and we can address the pandemic virus that we're all trying to fight at this point in time. This product is really flexible in application, which is one of the biggest benefits that I see. Again, it's kind of that one-stop shop. You can use it in your 3-compartment sink in the back of the house. You can use it in the front of the house on tables. So it has a lot of flexibility, and it can be applied via spray bottle, in a sanitizer bucket. We have dry wipes available that you can douse and use in front of house, back of house. And it can even be applied through an electrostatic sprayer when you follow those label directions. So that is it for today. Katie, what do we have for questions?
Thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation. That was so informative, and I really, really appreciate the time you guys took to put together such a great presentation for our customers. I'll start off with a question myself, and then to our attendees, this is the time for you to either unmute or write any questions that you may have in the chat box, and we will do our best to answer them. You have a couple of experts here, so any questions you need, please, please, please write in the chat. But I'll start with one question. So what impact does dwell time have on proper disinfection? I know you guys talked about how it can range from 30 seconds to 10 minutes. Why do they vary with products?
That is a really great question. A lot of it has to do with the chemistry itself. So what ingredients were put into that product to start with. And so the impact on contact time is going to have to do with that active ingredient. It's going to have to do with how much of that active ingredient is in there, what dilution is used, if it's a concentrated solution or if it's ready to use. So there's just so many iterations of that out there on the market today that it's really hard to say like, well, it's a quat product, therefore, it's going to be this contact time. So I guess that's why we would just say it's just so critical to make sure you're reading the label, reading those use directions, and for whatever specific product you're using, the contact time for that chemistry to kill. If it's just general disinfection you're going for, or if it's a pandemic specific cleaning process.
Another question that I have is, what is the advantage to using dilution control over ready to use? Is there an advantage?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of big advantages to dilution control. So, and Casey, jump in if you have some others that I miss out on. But I guess first and foremost, there's a big sustainability impact, right? So there's less energy required to make that product, to ship that product to you. So it's got a nice sustainability story to it. Beyond that, though, you have a lot more product at your disposal. So when you order a case of concentrate, you have enough product to last you a certain amount of time. You're able to get generally a much, much better use cost out of it. So the amount of money you're paying for a case of concentrate, when you calculate that down to a spray bottle, that spray bottle is going to be a lot cheaper than a ready to use as well. And I think just in terms of flexibility of use, there are products out there that can have multiple dilutions. So you're able to really tailor in that dilution to your specific cleaning applications, your specific needs, whatever it is that your operation needs to be successful. It gives you more flexibility.
Okay, awesome. Another question I have is, the peroxide safe on all surfaces? I don't know if I missed that during the presentation.
Yeah, this is a really good question. I'll give a couple thoughts here, and Amanda, feel free to jump in as well. The peroxide is really meant for those hard, non-porous surfaces, and we do have a list of surfaces that it's compatible with. We would steer clear of some of those more sensitive surfaces. So if you have a marble, a granite, or a soft metal, this would not be the best option for that. But otherwise, it's fairly compatible depending on the dilution that you're at with the majority of hard, non-porous surfaces.
Okay, awesome. Does any of our attendees have any questions? Feel free to write in the chat box or unmute yourself. I think you guys just did such a thorough. Oh, we have one here. 1 second. It says, do you have a chemical for soft surfaces?
So yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Amanda.
I was just going to say the peroxide multi-surface cleaner and disinfectant is approved for use on soft surfaces as soft surface sanitizer. We always recommend, if you're going to start using it on a soft surface, just check the fabric type, make sure it isn't something that is sensitive to water-based anything, right? So there are some fabrics that aren't very happy with water in general. And then just test an inconspicuous space on it before you start using it more broadly.
Yeah, and beyond that, if you need a specialty product, we definitely have offerings for upholstery cleaning, carpet cleaning, more specialized products. So depending on what you're looking for, we have something that can help you for sure.
Actually, Casey, I have a question for you. I've been getting a lot of questions on products that are having claims over the 24 hours and extended. Could you just touch point that on the difference between the bacteria claim versus the viruses?
Yes. So I think you're talking about those residual claims, right? Something that could continuously kill over a certain period of time. Yeah. So there have been a couple products that have come to the market that are really focused on residual cleaning and disinfection, particularly, to address these viral concerns that we have. There are not many. And so I would be really careful if you're either looking at implementing one in your operation to make sure that it's approved for use in your state for your particular use. EPA does have a really nice website that lists out products and what they're approved for that's specific to these residual chemistries. So that would be my watch out there. And sometimes they do leave behind a little bit of a sticky residue. So again, make sure that it's compatible with whatever surface you're using it on. And that you're not going to have any, negative impact by applying that product. In terms of Ecolab having a product, we don't have a product right now that has a residual claim, but it's always something that we're looking at. And, I'm sure there'll be more information to come in the future on that. Amanda, anything else to throw in there?
Yeah, just a little additional background to add. I would say, the pandemic has certainly elevated the visibility of these types of long-lasting claims. And so historically, there are products on the market that have had claims for odor-causing bacteria or bacteria that cause staining, things like that. So you might find those in floor finishes. You might find those in things that are more coating type products. Be careful with those. That's all I would say, because those products are not approved to kill the kinds of germs that make people sick. So they don't work against viruses. They don't work against the pandemic. They don't even work against any of the typical bacteria that might make a person sick. They're very limited in their claim set, but they've gotten very creative in their marketing. So just wanting to make sure that you guys are just well informed when you choose a solution like that you actually know the kind of performance it's going to deliver to you, and that it's not kind of creating this false sense of safety and security in kind of a really high risk time right now.
Yeah. And one thing I just thought of that I would love to add is a lot of these products say, it will disinfect or it will get to 99.9% kill at the 2-hour mark. So what happens from 0 minutes to 2 hours? You need to think about that. And then they also, a lot of them recommend doing this continuous disinfection on top of having this coating. So it can be a great tool, but it should be part of your arsenal of cleaning and disinfecting products. It shouldn't kind of be that silver bullet that we kind of lay back on our haunches and think, oh, great, I did this coating. I no longer need someone to be disinfecting. You still do need someone to be doing that manual cleaning and disinfection.
Fantastic. We have a few more questions in the chat box. One of them is, there are many electrostatic sprayers on the market. Is peroxide safe in all of these? And what are the advantages to the Victory unit? Are they readily available?
Yeah, another really great question. Amanda and I can definitely tag team. We've been, intimately involved in the project, focused on, making sure that this product is compatible with the Victory sprayer. So I would say that's the first most important thing, is this is the sprayer that we've done the most testing with our peroxide product. So we feel very comfortable that it's compatible with all the components. The nozzle, the plastic on the outside have all performed really well with the peroxide being sprayed through them continuously. And we have sprayers that have been going for more hours than you could ever use the electrostatic sprayer on site. So we feel pretty comfortable with that. The good thing about the Victory unit, it's obviously battery powered, so that makes it more flexible for use across your operation. They have 2 options, the handheld and the backpack. And so that makes it, really user friendly. You don't have to be thinking about where is my plug to plug it in, and in any particular area. And also you can change the nozzle size. So, if you want it to go smaller particle size, you can do that. You can go up to a bigger particle size if you want the disinfectant to stay on the surface longer. So that flexibility is also something that we see as a benefit to this particular sprayer. And they are available. I don't know off the top of my head the number of units that we have, but I know every single month we're getting more and more units in. So if you want them, they are definitely available to you. Amanda, anything I missed on that?
I would just say if you're looking at sprayers, or if you already own a sprayer that maybe isn't a Victory sprayer, if you're looking for other sprayers that are out there, I would say, just look into the user manual. We have seen some sprayers that specifically state don't use hydrogen peroxide containing products or certain ones like that, which that just indicates that the materials they use to build the inside of those sprayers aren't as robust and aren't going to stand up as long to the types of chemistries that you put through them. So just to watch out, it is an investment, so you want to make sure you're investing your money in something that's really going to be there for the long haul.
Fantastic. What type of PPE equipment should you use if you are fogging surfaces?
That's a good question. So I'll start out by saying fogging is different from electrostatic spraying. Electrostatic spraying will go down to a particle size of 40 microns. So that's just how big those droplets are that are coming out of the nozzle. And the reason why that is important is it's a safety thing. The smaller particle sizes are, the deeper they will go into a person's lungs if you happen to inhale them. And so EPA has put a cutoff of 40 microns on there because we know from some very extensive studies done in the health world how far different particle sizes get inside our body. And so 40 microns is something that will not get into your deep lungs. And so that is really important, especially when it comes to cleaning chemicals. When we start talking about fogging, that's when we go below that 40 micron mark. We get to really small particle sizes, which means the level of PPE required is going to go up. So it's very dependent on the chemistry that is being used. And you want to make sure that that chemistry has specific language on the label that says it can be used in fogging. Because again, this is something that requires very specific testing for the EPA to approve its use, and they're going to dictate what that PPE is. But you might see things like full face respirators, you may see full, those kind of hazmat style bodysuits required for that type of application.
Interesting. So there was a follow-up question to that. Is fogging better than electrostatic? I feel like you sort of answered that.
I would say it's different. Typically, fogging is something where you get the best benefits out of it when you actually fill the entire airspace with the chemistry that's being used. And so that usually means you're actually sealing off a room, sealing off the air spaces, blocking the vents and stuff like that, and filling a room with the fog. Fogging as a directed spray can be a little more challenging because you're not getting as much chemistry to directly sit and rest on that surface as you might with a coarser spray like you would get from electrostatic. So again, it just depends on that type of equipment you're using, what your goal is, right? And just making sure you're finding the right tool for that job.
Awesome. Joe has another question. Because Victory is battery powered, does it lose efficiency as the battery power drains down?
So we have not seen that in our testing so far. Typically when the battery runs out, it runs out. And you'll see it happen pretty quickly. The batteries are 4-hour batteries. So if it's something that's being used for an entire shift, we do recommend having a couple on hand so that you can grab the second battery, plug it in, put the first battery on the charging station, and continue on your way.
Awesome. And then the last question we have is there a recommended setting for the sprayer to kill COVID or SARS-CoV-2?
In terms of nozzle size, I think is probably what they're getting at. Yeah, so anything above 40 micron, and this would be across the board, whether you're using a Victory sprayer or some other electrostatic sprayer, that 40 micron really is the cutoff for, like Amanda said, where you start needing way more additional PPE, things that require a special fit test. So we want to be 40 micron or above. And then as you get bigger, it actually does take longer for it to evaporate off the surface, and you're using more product with a bigger nozzle size. So those are all things to consider when you're setting that nozzle size.
Okay. Any last minute questions here from our customers? Well, I will say that was a very engaging hour. Thank you so much to our partners at Ecolab for such a fantastic presentation. It was extremely informative. And to all of our attendees, thank you for joining this webinar this morning and spending time with us to go over cleaning and disinfecting. And we appreciate you joining, and we will be sure to send you the recording. And for all of the attendees who signed on, we'll be getting back to you about the discount we're running with the Ecolab peroxide product, and also the Amazon gift card that we are going to give away. So thank you so much to everyone who joined this morning, and a huge thank you to our friends at Ecolab. You guys did a fantastic job.
One last thing, Katie, is the victory sprayers are available through Hill & Marks. You guys do have them available to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day.